Welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman, a podcast loaded with practical tips, powerful scripts, personal stories, and simple steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. So get ready to get the information you need to make the impact you want from someone you trust, your friend, parenting expert, Dr. Robyn Silverman.
Hello and welcome to How to Talk to Kids About Anything, where we give you the tips, scripts, stories, and steps to make even the toughest conversations easier. I'm so honored to be your host, Dr. Robyn Silverman, child and teen development specialist, author and speaker, and most importantly, parent of two great kids who give me the opportunity to love, learn, and grow every single day, whether I want to or not. Believe me, I get it. It's not always easy, but we're in this together and we have some great people helping us along the way. Now, before we launch into today's podcast, I want to thank the many of you who've already pre-ordered my book, How to Talk to Kids About Anything, same name as the podcast, so you can't forget, which comes out in September 2023. I can't wait to share it with all of you, my loyal listeners who have been with me on this journey as we interview the most interesting, helpful, insightful experts and authors and professors and real people from around the world. So many of their words are reflected in my forthcoming book. Thank you again for purchasing. I hope you love it. Now, what is to come for a child who is told he is garbage, worthless, beaten to the ground? I have often said that children who have the love and kindness and acceptance of an adult or several adults can be the difference. As you might remember me saying, Search Institute found that many young people don't feel that they have at least three people to turn to in a time of need or challenge. And our next guest had a very hard start to his life, abused by his father, watching his mother and his siblings meet that same fate. He survived the streets of Uganda, and due to the potential that somebody saw in him, a key adult, he wound up going to school and altering his life for the better in every possible way, and now is making a huge impact on his own children, his foster kids, and many people around the world. My next guest will help us to understand how to talk to kids about acceptance and true self-worth. He has a remarkable story. Peter Mutabazi is an entrepreneur, an international advocate for children, and the founder of Now I Am Known, a corporation that supplies resources to encourage and affirm children. A single father and a foster dad, Peter Mutabazi is a former street kid who has worked for World Vision, Compassion International, and the Red Cross. He has appeared on media outlets such as the BBC and the Today Show and continues to be a passionate speaker. He currently lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. For more information, you can visit nowiamknown.com and follow Peter at Foster Dad Flipper. He has a book out right now, and it's called Now I Am Known, and it's a great book. I read it myself, and really a gripping story, a true life story, and an important story. Welcome, Peter, to How to Talk to Kids About Anything.
Well, thank you for having me here. Truly excited to talk with you.
I'm excited to talk with you too. So before we go deeper into your story and talking about kids, talking to kids about acceptance and self-worth, can you tell us what lights you up and what got you so interested in ensuring that every child feels known and knows their self-worth?
Well, it begins with me, like a stranger who did not know me, a stranger who had never seen me before. We didn't speak the same language. We didn't look alike, but somehow saw potential in me. And so for me, what lights me up is when I see potential in others and I'm given opportunity to say, participate in their lives, come alongside friends, co-workers. And for me right now, my children, even their bio parents, it's amazing when I have a child and then really get to be also a resource to their bio parents. It feels like I'm fostering an entire family, and that has been really an opportunity and a joy too, that not only am I changing their children, but also the entire bio family as well.
That is beautiful. I didn't mention this to you before, but we adopted both of our children and are very much in touch with their birth families as well. And so this really speaks to me, and making sure that that you understand that when we foster children or adopt children, that we're not dealing with one single person. We're dealing with, an entire family, and they are worthwhile and need to know they're accepted as well. So I really appreciate what you're saying. So can you give us a little bit of a background story of what you came through, maybe some key points of what you came through in order to get to where you are today?
Right. I think for me, I had to, from a very early age, I had to understand that there was no life for me, that there was no hope, because I did not have a name until when I was 2 years old. So from very early age, I knew my chances of survival were very, very small. And then the other part was there was never food. So think about that. You would have food every other day and you couldn't make a choice, but also you couldn't have enough. The food would be divided for specific days. So, not only did you work so hard as a kid, but there wasn't a meal. So for me, growing up from a place where I didn't have to think about, well, will there a future for me, that wasn't an aspect or part of my life that I really had to think through. It was more of, we have today, but I'm not sure we'll make it either today. That is kind of a world that I had to really overcome, to know, like, hey, you know what? Though today is rough, you might make it next week. Like, I didn't have that background of thinking farther than today. So that was the first hurdle that I really had to deal with, as a kid. And the abuse too. So not only the misery and hopelessness was lack of food and going to work as a kid at a very early age. I mean, at 4, I could go fetch water 3 miles away at 4, But while you're going to fetch water, that's where you get to meet other kids who abuse you, who are mean, but also you're going to fetch water on an empty stomach, So that was number one. Then coming home and, having a dad who didn't see any positive in anything you did, the moment he saw you garbage, you stupid boy, what are you doing here? That my own father was my worst enemy. So those two things were the things that I really had to deal with at a very early age, that were tough to overcome because they weren't going away. They were just there every day. That was my toughest part as a kid.
And when I was reading your book, I knew that you also had to endure watching your mother get abused. Your mother had to endure watching you getting abused, and you didn't hold that against her, because if she came to rescue you, then she would have been abused again. And so there was an understanding between the two of you that unfortunately this was the reality, and there was that hopelessness. There was just part of reality. There was nothing you could do about it. Once you finally escaped, and instead in the middle of the night instead of at 3 in the morning getting your father's cigarettes, although you did get a couple of cigarettes for him, you decided to keep going and get on a bus and go as far as you could, and then wound up living at the bus terminal with some other wonderful and scrappy kids. So once you were there, you had to endure some hardships, but also you kind of got a sense of family and freedom at the same time. Is that correct?
Right, absolutely. That's correct. And if I can take you back to my mother, I think the hardest part as kids, for me, who's a foster dad to kids, is the guilt. Most of my abuse from my mother was the guilt, because she was fighting for you to have a meal, but because she asked for a meal, she got a beating for that. Or she said, please, would you let my kids go to school, at least learn how to read or learn how to spell their name? Or she get the beatings for that. So as a 3, 5, 10-year-old watching that, your mom is trying to advocate for you, but she's getting punished for that. That guilt is what is the hardest part to deal with, as I grew up as well, So fast forward, so I had never been 20 miles away from my village, so I went on the bus station and I asked, which of these buses goes the farthest? The lady said that one. I was like, okay. And the reason why I asked was, how far can I run that if I die, my father will never see my dead body? So for me, running away wasn't like I was looking for a better life. It was more of, I know he's going to kill me, but why give him the joy of killing me? I would rather, so for me, it was more, I'm going to run and I would rather die in the hands of a stranger, so going that far was a joy to know that he would never find me, that if I died, he would never have a joy of laughing or rejoicing, burying me. And so once I reached in Kampala, I found other street kids and that became my life, and the abuse was 100 times than was at home, but there was a difference. These were strangers. These were not my relatives. These are the people I didn't know. I feel like they had a right to abuse me because they didn't know me. So the abuse didn't go as far as what my father would do towards me.
And it wasn't as meaningful because
Correct.
they were strangers.
Correct.
But also at the same time, it seemed that you felt worthless and deserving of the abuse because you hadn't yet found your self-worth. Is that correct?
Correct. Because, you're a thief. So the only way we could find food was stealing it from him. So you had to really, in some way, distract your mind. Like, I'm not going to follow the principles of my mother taught me to survive, but I'm going to learn a different way, where I had to be numb. Stealing food, it was all I could do. But also people abused us in every shape, form you could imagine. Think of it, that the woman will hold you hostage, that you have to do this for me. But you knew the only way I can fulfill their sexual behavior is for me to be safe. So things you had to learn how to be numb to go through in order to survive. So that in a way that made me less of a human. That's how I looked at myself. I was garbage. That's how I was referred to. That's how I was looked at. I was garbage, useless, that I had no role or worth of anything. And I accepted that because that's what I looked like, that's what I smelled like. We live in the trash with stray animals. And sometimes, people would throw food, would have to run to get it before dogs got it. So in some way, literally, I feel like I was a stray animal. That's how people looked at me. Yeah.
And then that during the time that you were at the bus depot, that was the time when James found you and kept sort of going back and forth and would see you, and you would carry his bags, and then he would give you some food and kind of started to develop a relationship with you. So what do you think James saw in you that eventually made him say, I'd like to put you through school. I'd like to have you join this boarding school and see what you can do?
Well, the first time he met me, to me, that was scary because any kindness to us, a street kid, meant danger, because any kind human being followed with abuse. So him giving food didn't mean he was good. It was like, oh, danger. But I waited for that danger to show up, but it didn't show up. The other thing that I think helped him to do was he earned the right to know me. He fed me for 1.5 years before he could offer me that opportunity. So in some way, he built that friendship. He built that trust in me that there's no way I could have trusted him. Had he asked me the 5th time or even the 100th time, I was like, nah, you're gonna abuse me. I'm not gonna follow you. So in some way, he really earned the right to ask me because he fed me for 1.5 years. And also that helped me to, it's not like I did trust him, but I was like, well, he's fed me for this long. I'm sure what he's saying might be true, So at the back
trust.
of that trust, even in the midst of that, that I knew, okay, he's gained it in some way. He's earned the right for me to feel like, maybe I might go. And he didn't take me to school. He tried several times. I said no, because I never felt I was student enough. I never felt I was human enough to go to school because I always thought I was less of a human being. What he changed is he said, if you go to school, there will be lunch, dinner, and breakfast.
3 meals a day. Yes.
That's all I was like, that must be heaven, like for anyone to have 3 meals a day.
3
so
meals.
For me, going there was really more the idea of food. It had nothing to do with education until later.
And he gave you shoes, which seemed like a very big deal to you as well.
Yes, but I didn't like them because I had never wore shoes until 16 years old. I never had a pair of shoes.
Wow.
So in some way, that's maybe where he really began to give me a little glimpse of hope. Like, wait a minute, I could be human. I could be less than what others think of me. And I think for me also, what shocked me was I was at my lowest point of life. For him to see the best in me is really what changed for me. That I was trying to steal from him, but he didn't say, you thief, go away. But he just gave me food, and he did it not once, but all the time. And I think I felt like, wait a minute, maybe I'm human. Maybe there's something in me that I'm worthy of feeding in a way.
I mean, I see you're getting emotional, and I can imagine why, but I also imagine that what you're saying, this key lesson of, number one, taking the time to gain the trust of the children who come into your house, who you meet and who you love, and at the same time, helping them to see their humanity and to see that they are worthwhile, no matter what their past is what makes you so special and that relationship so special. Would you say that you are applying those very lessons that James did with you to the children that come through your house as foster children, and those children who come into your house who wind up staying for a long time or a short time?
Yes, absolutely. Knowing that the world they're coming from, they've been, feel unwanted, feel unloved. And that is the aspect of the basic needs of humanity that I have to really give to my kids. It's not that they have to make their beds first. They have to do well in school. Like, those come secondary, that have to meet the basics of what they lack. Safety, and feeling I am okay to that child is important, and I think sometimes we forget, they come to a nice home, we feel like, okay, you're good, now, those traumatic situations they've gone through still are there. And for me to somehow tear those walls, I have to focus on that first, than the things I see. My kids, sometimes they'll steal food. They will come and steal food and put it under their bed. And I'm like, I understood. They weren't stealing food. They knew there would be no food tomorrow, and they were keeping a little extra for the next day. And so my approach would change in that sense. Like, okay, here's how I can help them really tear those walls of wondering, will there be food tomorrow? But rather, how do I really help manage the expectation, but also feel that they are safe and there's food for them always at all times?
So what would you say was the turning point for you that helped you realize your own worth after being abused, after being told you were garbage? What was there a moment that you were turned on to realize, wait a second, I'm worth something? Or was it a building over time?
It was a moment. So once he took me to school, I think I'd been there for, 10 days. So for me, I never trusted anyone can be good towards me, So when he took me in a boarding school, they gave me a bunk bed. I slept on the floor because I didn't trust, there's no one. Then the kids would want me to join to go play soccer. For me, the instant thing was to fight back. I was like, what? Wait a minute. They don't want to fight me. They want me to go play. So that's kind of where I realized, like, wait a minute, I've always seen everyone as an enemy and I had to protect myself, but that's not what I should be thinking about or worried about. That these people actually care, that they want me to come alongside. And that was the aha moment. Like, wait a minute. The teacher thinks I got an F, but she thinks I'm okay. Wait a minute. That's really what changed for me. That moment where I realized, like, people really aren't, they're not here to punish me or see the worst in me. They really want to help. So I came from an example of one man. Now I had multiple students and teachers. Now I was like, wait a minute. It's just not the ideal because he fed me that he had to be nice to me. But in general, people are kind and they're trying to be kind to me. That was really what changed my mind. Like, okay, I'm not going to hit this guy, because anyone who saw me face, for us 3 kids, if you looked in my eyes, that meant you want to fight. So now I was like, wait, back up, Peter, and that helped me to not react. Oh, still, the first 10 days at school, my plot was what can I steal here?
Right.
Because that's the world I had come from. Then I realized,
Right.
wait a minute, there's food. Why would I take it anyway? Why would I steal someone's stuff? Because I knew if I take it, that would take the food away. So then I knew for me to keep getting that food, I needed to step back and not do the instant things that I thought would give me food.
It's really interesting. And so it was once you trusted the situation and the children and the teachers, it seemed you also changed your focus. You moved from fighting to wanting to learn. You became a real student. You had already had potential. You were quite bright. That's what one of the things James saw in you. But all of a sudden you started to apply yourself. You were studying more. You were borrowing people's notes. I'm going to say borrowing in quotes because I know you were kind of, looking at their notes while they were on the soccer field, but, looking through their notes so that you could really understand the what you had missed essentially when you were at the bus depot, and became a really strong student, so much so that the teachers would say to you, hey, you got a C on this, but I see potential that you can get an A. I can actually see you as a student. And then you began to see yourself more as a student and a person who had potential to really become something. Is that correct?
Correct. Yes. So the one thing they did was for me, I could hear words of affirmation that I didn't understand before, So this man would say, Peter, you're brave. And I'm like, what does that mean, brave? Come on. I spent most of my life just being the stepping stool for everyone. He says, Peter, if I slept, I would never be able to live on the street for one day. For you to live on the street for 5 years, you're brave. So he began to see what I saw as negative, make them into positive, And also he invited me to his home. So now I was like, wait a minute. I saw a father being kind to his kids. I saw how they play. I saw how they sat. So now that became my ideal. If I could have, I want to have that, So then I began to learn oh, by the way, he went to school. He doesn't steal. He doesn't beat people. So now I began to really see what he saw in me. Oh, he thinks I'm chosen. Maybe I'm chosen. He thinks I'm a gift. Maybe I'm a gift. And the teachers too, they will see potential and say, Peter, you're smart. I'm like, really? So I began to believe in what I had by the words of affirmation that I had from them. And now it began from, wait a minute, I can get a B, I can get an A. And that really encouraged me because I had those alongside. Every time I doubted myself, they saw the best and helped me to see that I could do. And now I excel. The other part the honest part that also changed my life. Now I began to say, how can I show my father that he is wrong? Because these are 5 words I had from my dad. You are nobody. You'll never amount to anything. I wish you were never born so I don't have to feed you. And you will never amount to anything. Hearing those, I believe in them. So now I thought, wait a minute. Everything he said, I can actually disprove to him that that's not true. And that's not who I am. So my whole goal was to work so hard to disprove what my father thought of me. And that worked in some way.
Yeah. Look, you are speaking my language right now. I find it so important to help relabel kids who have adopted labels that keep them back, that are false, and that they have taken on because that's what they've been called, that's what they have learned, and they feel like they're not worthy, they feel ugly, they feel lazy, all the things that people have put on them. To relabel a child, to show a mirror to them and say, that's not how I see you. Not only do I not see you that way, that is not who you are. And that really powerful statement of I am worthwhile. I am a student, whatever you fill in the blank. When children are not able to fill in that blank with a positive statement that drives them forward and helps them look within and say, I am that, you provide the words until they can adopt them themselves. So I feel very strongly about what you're saying. I love that you're putting such an important story to it, because it helps to illustrate the fact so well that when we take a child who has been beaten down by negative statements, by negative labels, that there is a chance for them to adopt these positive labels if we help them to see them and we use the words, we converse with them, we say it to them so that they can finally adopt them themselves.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. I'll give you an example. My 18-year-old, I wanted to surprise him with a gift to go drive. So I thought, I'm going to for driver, I'm going to send him to school. So I said, hey, there's someone coming to pick you up at school. So be at this spot. He's like, what are they doing? I'm like, oh, they're coming to take you to drive. All of a sudden, he just went off. Please don't send them. I don't want it. I'm like, oh, whoa, what just happened? So I said, okay, I'll come and pick you up. So then I went to him. Before I picked him, I said, Zay, you're the smartest kid I know. You love people. And I know here in the United States, in order to help people and see your friends, is you have to drive. So if we can make that easy for you, you get to do the best you can and get a job and do that. And then I asked him, why was that a big issue? He said, this is what he said. He said, I never thought I was worth it. So that's how he thought. So he said, I'll sabotage it before you do. So if it's a lie, I'm going to say no. So I feel I have the power to say no to driving because I know I'm not worth it. And I mean, I wanted to cry. Then I was like, no, son, you go drive. And so he went to drive and he came back. He's like, I'm the best driver he's ever had.
Oh, well.
But we can see how to truly debunk of what I like what you said. It's, the negative, once we remove it and place it with a positive or what is possible, then for them, they begin to dream. I mean, now he's driving, but had I been not listening, I could have said, okay, you don't want it. Who cares? No, yes. I knew where it was coming from first.
Right.
And that's how I approached him and said, no, you're worth it. Because I knew him saying no was sabotage. I'll put it out before you put it out.
Oh, I'm so glad to meet you because I just feel like you and I are we come from such different places, but we're so on the same page. It's so important what you're doing. So because you foster children and many of the people who come through your house, they've been abused or neglected, they have traumatic histories. How do you help them to see their worth and that they are accepted and loved for who they are, given that background that they're coming from? How do we help to turn that around? How have you helped to turn that around for them?
I think for me, it's validate. The word validate, I love that word because it helps someone to say, hey, what are your feelings true? And I think sometimes that's where our kids don't understand. They feel they're going through so much that we don't understand or will never learn who they are or never be there as they want. And I think for me, that's the one thing that I've kind of really learned to know. I want to tag alongside of the feelings of the abuse you've gone through and say that is true. It is true what you went through. It's true what you're feeling now. It's true the anger you have. That is my always first place too. And once they say, okay, he is not judging me. He is not seeing me like I'm different or weird, but he's agreeing with me that my feelings or my struggles are real and true. That has been my first place because that's what that man did for me. Again, as a street kid, he didn't say, well, you have to do 1, 2, 3, and 4 before you can go to school or before I can feed you. No, he just accepted me who I was as a street kid. The same applicable tools and principles I have to use for my kids. Yes, I know you went through, I can imagine what you do. Or they're putting walls in my house. I don't say, oh, how dare you? No, I say, I have to put myself aside and say, Peter, he is talking and he's going through a difficult time. Right now, all he needs is just a dad to say, it's okay. It's okay. Not to judge them, not to say, how dare you? No, this anger has to stop. No, to say, I know how you feel. I really know how you feel. And then from there, once I get to really understand those areas, then I get to walk alongside. And for me, it isn't so much to make sure that I help them, but more create space for them to feel comfortable to let go or deal with what they're going through.
Mm.
That's been my way of acknowledging where they're coming from, validate, I understand what you're feeling. And then for me as a parent to say, now, how do I create an environment where this kid will feel he is loved, he is wanted, he's worth it. And also what he went through is not his fault, And I think for me, being the example, I always go back to my story. I say, I was you. I know what it meant. I know how it felt. But this is how I overcame that. These are things I did to get to me to where I am. So they are looking at a dad, not just a dad, but a dad who walked the same journey as they did. And that truly has helped me, to truly be there for their kids. And also not to put a timeline. I think sometimes parents, we say, oh, we've talked this over and over. Why can't you get over it? Well, no, I've come to learn, that we might say something 10, 100 times before they can say, now I get it. And it's my job to repeat it and repeat it. Remember, they use words of affirmation to debunk the negative I had, but it didn't happen one day, over. And that really helped me to say, you know what, I believe it. I can do this. The same I have to do for my kids. They'll fail over and over, but it's my job to keep picking up those pieces and walking alongside them. And then at their own time, when God or their mind can do, then they will. But I have no timeline or to say, I know when. I just create space.
Yeah, what a beautiful way of helping them and being patient with them. There was something that you said that it made me wonder, and this is a tough one, but I imagine after I read your book and after I'm hearing what you're saying, it would be very easy to be angry and question, why did this happen to me? Why in my family? Why my father? Why? How do you get through the hatred and the hopelessness to find forgiveness? Because we need to get to that point in order to be available to our children and help them on that same journey, to unburden them, right?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, I had to really learn. My father was his own man and his own responsibility, and I was the same. Like it wasn't it wasn't two in one, but we're two different people. This is the man who wished me the worst. Was a person who could change that. That's how I look to myself. Like, hey, his anger is his. Like, I can't be part of that. Like, him wanting to punish and be mean to people. That's how he dealt. But I didn't have to follow the same trait in some way. That's for me helped me to know that when someone is angry, that's them feeling whatever they're feeling. But they're not angry because my fault. No, And then for me too, I also had to learn quickly that he never wanted the best for me. So for me, not doing the best was making him win in some way. In my little boy as a kid, I thought me failing is giving him an opportunity to say, yeah, I knew you'd lose anyway. But I wanted to, in some way, not let his feelings or his anger or his unwanted behaviors towards me define me, that I wanted to be my own person. Like, no. I'm not going to let you in some way define my future or define who I'll be, because that is your issue. And that helped me when I was 8 years old. So my father sent me to go fetch water, and after beating me, and I was so mad. I can tell you, I was so mad. But on my way back, I passed by the bar and he was drinking and smiling and laughing with his friends. And I was like, wait a minute, I've been sulking the whole day, but this man didn't even blink. He's been having fun. So that's when I was like, you know what? I'm going to let you beat me physically, but I will never let you get to my mental health, that I will not let you get into my inside brain, but I will let you reach my body. That you can do. And I think that really helped me to survive. even being on the streets, even now that even my kids, when they're angry or mad, to know like, hey, it's not about me. It's not me who's the problem right now, but I need to listen to them. I remove myself and say, that's them feeling so, and I have to be a dad at this moment. Though the bad words are coming towards me, I just happen to be the person that is safe for them to say, that I have to accept them, but not repeat or think the negative towards them in some way, but rather come in as, I want to be their son. How can I be?
So given that when you were growing up, you were watching a father who was a terrible role model. How did you remap that for yourself? What it means to be a father? Was it by watching James interact with you and his kids? Was it something you developed on your own? Was it something you rejected in your father? How do you are now a wonderful father to all of these children. So how do you remap that for yourself when you've grown up in such a way that nobody would really fault you for seeing yourself in that same way as your father showed you all those years?
Right, you're absolutely right. Once I finished, I was in school. James said, I want you to spend time with us. So every holiday I'll go live with them. And that became my family. And that's where I saw the example. I said, this is funny. So the first day they invited me, this is what happened. They sat on the table and I thought, oh no, someone's gonna get hurt. Because we've never sat on the table. I've never seen enough. We ate before he came because we knew he would go through the window or that food is going to come flying towards you. So when they said that table, I was like, oh no, I don't want to be part of this. So they began serving food. So for me, they got me food and I sat by the exit door. Because I wanted, just when the fights begin, I wanted to know how to exit their house, But I waited and it didn't happen. And they were serving and they were eating and they were laughing. I was like, wait a minute, is this just a show? And I went back to my school and then I came back the next week. It was the same thing. I was like, this can't be. And then, of course, the more I began to live with them, then I realized this is what a father ought to be kind, to be gentle, to be playful, something I had never seen. And because I adored him, I wanted everything he did was more like, he's my God, And so now I began to learn how he talks to his kids, how he treats his girls, how he treats his wife. And that really became my motto of life. Like, if I ever be, I want to just be like him, And it's amazing, we have kids and I tell people, like, we can't all be foster parents, but we can be role models to our kids. When you invite a teenager to your office to spend a time with you, it's not like you're really giving them anything, but you're really changing the way they view the world around them. To see that office, to know that you can invite them and sit in that chair and they see you work, they're like, I could do this one day. It's those little glimpses of hope that we plant that they get to be. So yes, you call me a good father, thank you. But it's all because I saw a good father, that he taught me what a father ought to be.
I'm so moved by that. We have so many parents listening, but we also have coaches and teachers. And I just want to highlight what you're saying, that these key adults in the lives of children, you might not be a parent. You may be a coach or a teacher or somebody who works with children in a different capacity, but you are so important that you can influence a child by inviting them to your office, by speaking to them kindly, by telling them that they're worthwhile, by telling them that you see potential in them, that there are many key adults in the lives of children, an aunt, an uncle, a cousin, a teacher. And it takes many of us to show children that they're worthwhile, to help redefine their version of themselves. And the more adults that realize that and act on it, I mean, what an impact they could make on children who are in their lives, even for a short period of time. Wouldn't you agree?
Absolutely. I'll give you an example again. I met someone at church. They said, Peter, I want to help, but I don't really skill. I don't have anything to do. I'm like, what do you do? He said, we own a landscaping company. I say, okay, is there a way you could help one foster parent once a month? Once a month, you just go more there. Yeah, that's all you could do. And I said, that would be the greatest thing you could ever do. And he said, can you be that farm? And I was like, sure. And so he would come and more, but my teenagers will always go up because there's this machine,
Oh, yeah.
and he will let them sit on it and more. I'm telling you, he said, I had no idea, just a simple show up and a simple including the teenager, how it will change their life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's like, where have I been all my life? When he comes home, he's never missed once, but my kids always waiting for him just so they can just be with him. They mow, they clean. Who told them? He taught them how to by showing up twice a month.
Yeah,
and guess what? They have their birthday. Do you know who they invite for birthday? No, they're teenagers. The moment,
yes,
because that's how he's impacted their lives. Any good thing about them, they always go to him. We have other two young men who are single. They take my kids once a month to play video games with them. That's all they're doing. But I'm telling you, their birthday, who do they want to hang out? The men who come. Usually at first I thought it was strange, but it's they saw the example, they saw the role model, they saw the good men that they want to be alongside with, like they invite, even on their special day. But little did we know that we have to do the big thing. No, it is a small thing that truly changes the life of our kids.
Give us your top tip. What do you hope people come away with after listening to this podcast or reading your book?
Well, I mean, the African saying, it takes a village to raise a child, and it's not only applicable to Africa, but I think to United States as well. If we can see our county as our village, our small town as a village, and know that, hey, what impact can I do to impact the kids in our town, or moms, So I would say a few things you can do, we can all participate. You have money, give to charities in your community that help kids. You make good meals, or your wife makes good. Find one family where you can supply or provide for them a meal once a day. You have an amazing office, or you're good at what you do. Invite a teenager once in a while. Say, I would like to bring you once a month to work with me or to journey with me as I do my job, so they can see how all that happens. The other part is take single men like me. Sometimes I need another adult. Don't get me anything. Just say, Peter, can you show up at lunch so I can just go have lunch with you? Just that will have given me literally therapy that I need for an entire month. The other part is, ask questions. As foster parents, usually sometimes we don't know how to ask. We don't know how to, because we are so interested in the raising our kids with trauma that we forget about our needs. So if you're at the store and say, Peter, can I get you milk and eggs? I'll say absolutely, because you're right there at the store. Adoptive parents, it's easy sometimes to see that amazing family that have adopted, but sometimes they go through challenge as well. So to be mindful of that and say, man, this family have adopted kids, but how can I come alongside them and just, be that mentor or come alongside and help in any shape that I can. So we can all do something small. There's nothing small. We can all do something. And the other part, the biggest why I wrote this book, Now I'm Known, is do not let your past drag you or get in the way of your future. It's easy to look back and say, my mother did this, my father did this, or my boss did this, or my ex-husband this. Here's what I'll say. Get all that. It's all your history. Grab it with all you can, but use it as a foundation to do better for yourself and for others. I like the life, the life of, I know not all your viewers are believers, but I like what Joseph did in his story. Joseph was sold by people, by his brothers, but when they found him, they're like, oh no, he's going to kill us. But he said, what you meant for evil, somehow God has used it for good to save lives. In other words, you wanted me the worst for me, but that not happen. But somehow I was able to walk it through and overcome that, so I can help others do the same for you. Don't let the past rob you of your future. Use it for yourself and for good. And that's what I did. I beat the odds because I knew my father wanted the worst for me. I was like, I'm not gonna let you.
Right.
But
So
rather,
give us. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
But I'd rather use their past, not disregard what I went through, but somehow use it as a foundation for me to do better.
Well, I'm glad all of this worked out so beautifully for you and the people around you. Give us the resource of the week. Where can we go to get more information about you, your book, and the work you do?
NowI'mKnown.com. That's where, if you go there, you're going to find plushies, the words of affirmation that we have for kids, the free downloads that you can read, the 12 principles you can use in your family. That's the place you can go. NowI'mKnown.com is a place you'll find our story as well.
Well, I will have all those links for to be able to get in touch on my podcast show notes. So don't worry if you're running around, we got you. We'll have them all written down, and any social media links will also be there. And I just want to thank you so much, Peter, for being on the show today. What a pleasure it is to meet you and hear your story and read your book and just hear about the incredible impact that you've had on others in life because of the way that you have learned to see yourself and the way that you learn to see others. So thank you for being on the show.
Well, thank you for having me here, and thank you for being the voice and making sure every child is seen and heard, and we're grateful for you.
Oh, thank you. Well, I've got my takeaways, and sweet friends, I know you have yours. So let's discuss them. You can come up onto Facebook. You can go to the Dr. Robyn Silverman page, or we can chat about it. drrobynsilverman.com or twitter.com. I'm under Dr. Robyn, also on Instagram under Dr. Robyn Silverman, and trying my way at TikTok. I'm going to be going back and forth with Peter. He has a huge following on social media. I'll have those links available for you, but I will be going back and forth with Peter, talking about this podcast all week long, and the book, and answering questions. It's going to be awesome. I'm really excited about it. And if you love this podcast episode like I did, I hope you'll go up to iTunes and rate and review it so other people can learn about Peter's story and all the great things that he's doing. And the more you do that, the more we get those 5-star reviews, the more people will learn about the podcast and Peter, and it'll be good for everybody. I truly appreciate it. That's all the time we have for today, my fellow parents, leaders, and educators. Thank you so much for tuning in to How to Talk to Kids About Anything. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please go to drrobynsilverman.com. There's so many great podcasts up there, and the show notes to this podcast will be up there as well. I look forward to weathering the storms and enjoying the sunny side of life together. And please remember, even on the days when you fall short, you've got this. You're here. You're getting the information you need. I know it's not easy, but never forget, there is always a tomorrow. Parenting typically provides the ultimate do-over. So if you heard something today and you thought, I didn't do that well, I forgot to answer my child's question in this way, I wish I had known this before I had this conversation with this person who is fostering a child, you can do it again. You can get in touch with that person again. You can have that conversation again. And as there are moments when we doubt our know-how, our choices, and our sweet sanity, please know you are 10 times the parent you think you are. Until next time, this is Dr. Robyn Silverman with How to Talk to Kids About Anything. Please tune in again and keep connecting through conversation. See you next week.
You've been listening to How to Talk to Kids About Anything with Dr. Robyn Silverman. For more information on books, articles, speaking engagements, or curriculum, please visit drrobynsilverman.com.